it was supposed to be a fun night. That's what it was supposed to be. It was, in fact, my friend Brett and I, we were so excited about our plans that Friday night that when my dad came up to me and he said, Spencer, you will not be sneaking out tonight, that came across more as a challenge than as a command. So, what did we do? What all 13-year-olds do. I waited for him to leave to go on his trip, and Brett and I snuck out the basement window. We snuck out, we went down the street, and as we started meeting up with some of my friends, we hung out with them, and as we were there, we were having a good time. Hour and a half in, and then it happened. The reckoning. The glass door of the house I was at in the backyard, it slid open, and an adult unknown to me stepped outside it. He had a phone in his hand, and he said, "Is there a Spencer here?" There's a few times in your life when you know that your life is just over, and that was one of them. So I walked forward, and I grabbed the phone, and I said, hello, kind of curious, and my mother on the other line, all I could make out was, get home now, click. Okay, Mom. We walked down the street, and I was walking home, and I was scared out of my mind, Brett and I. I walked through the door just waiting for my mom to say something, but she didn't. She handed me the phone and walked away. And I took the phone and, hello? I thought I told you not to sneak out tonight. But Dad, we didn't do anything. We just, and before I could finish, my dad cut me off. He said, Spencer, listen, I love you, but just know that I don't trust you. Talk about a dagger to the heart. I mean, that's kind of one of those statements that's like, I've messed up and you know that you've messed up. I knew in that moment I had a seriously strained relationship with my father. Have you ever been there before? You've done something, or because of an action that you have taken, you have felt others distancing themselves from you. They start to kind of gravitate away from you, and you feel their presence walking away. It's an unbearable amount of weight to have. It's an emptying kind of a feeling in a relationship. And unfortunately, we are not the only ones to have experienced this kind of a feeling. In the Bible, there's a situation and that this type of story happens. And so if you have your Bibles, go ahead and open up to Exodus chapter 33, chapter 12. So some of you don't have your scriptures. That's okay. I'll get there. And as you open there, let me go ahead and set the stage. The people of Israel have just committed a grievous offense against God. They have gone ahead and they have created a golden image that they would go ahead and worship over God himself in Exodus 32. So they have not only offended God, but they have chosen something over God, and now God has threatened to leave their community. His presence will now withdraw from the people of Israel, and they know this. And there's fear, there's anger, there's confusion, and all of this emotion is where our text picks up. Moses said to the Lord, "You have been telling me lead these people, but you will not let me know whom you will send with me. You've said, I know you by name, and I found favor with me. But if you're pleased with me, teach me your ways so that I may know you and continue to find favor with you." Remember that this nation is your people. I want you to realize this, that sometimes the most difficult prayers and conversations with God bring about the greatest changes in our relationships with him. And Moses realizes this. And so Moses has this really difficult conversation and prayer with God. And God replies this way in verse 14, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." Now, I want us to focus in on this, because at the heart of my struggle with my father, when I messed up, the heart of my struggle wasn't the idea that I had really gone against my dad, wasn't what he might say to me. It was actually the fact that I thought that my dad wouldn't want to be around me anymore. I was afraid that I wouldn't have the presence of my father be near me. And that terrified me. How much more elevated then if we were to take this situation and scenario and apply God to it? If we thought that God himself would remove his presence from us, wouldn't we go to God? Wouldn't this be a more elevated situation? And I think Moses realizes this because in verse 12, his language that he uses is actually, it's not a formal request. God, don't leave us, come back to us. It actually comes across more as a crying out and as a plea. Moses is desperate for the presence of God because Moses realizes that the presence of God can change our circumstances. Moses didn't shy away from God, even though there was a shameful situation in front of them. He encountered God in the middle of a difficult time. And it's through this, he went boldly to God to have a difficult prayer. And in our shortcomings, I want to remind you this: don't flee from God. Run to him. Verse 14 says that his presence brings us rest. And there's just a lot of that tension that we carry with us. And so God gives Moses his assurance that his presence will go with Moses. But shockingly, Moses hears this and he's not content with it. He wants more. So read along with me verses 15 through 17. It says, Moses said to him, "If your presence doesn't go with us, do not even send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth?" And then the Lord said to Moses, "I will do the very thing that you have asked, because I am pleased with you and I know you by name." If we know that God's presence can change our circumstances, I believe firmly that as Christians, we should become relentless in seeking that same presence for other people. That's exactly what Moses is doing here. He heard that God is willing to give him his presence, but Moses says, "No, I want your presence for the entire nation." And that's what we need to do here. When we experience true grace and true forgiveness, we realize what Moses realizes here. When we receive that grace of God's presence, don't focus it inwards, focus it outwards. Mark 12, 30 and 31 lays this out, and he says that, this is when it talks about, "You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with your soul, your mind, and all your strength." But the second commandment is this: to love your neighbor as yourself. There are no other commandments greater than these. This is talking about exactly what Moses realized, that you need to love your neighbor, and you need to bring the presence of God to them for that. We have found our grace in the presence of God, but yet we shouldn't stop there. What did Moses do with that grace? He shared it with all of the people of Israel. He sought to share it with them. And you need to realize this: it's not just sinner, it's not just like his friends and his family, this is sinner and saint. And so as we're looking at this, do you have people in your life that you know of that you could bring this grace to? And so when we realize that, do you have these kind of people? Do you pray for them? Do you bring these people before God, right or wrong in their deeds? Do you seek to bring them into reconciliation with the Father like Moses did with his people? And this goes beyond what's just easy. Let's talk about the easy thing that we can do. When we think of these people, you're like, "Oh, who are those people I can pray for?" You immediately probably think of your family and your friends, right? No, this is calling something even more challenging. God's saying, and Moses is doing something, he's bringing everyone. He's bringing those people, the whole nation, the people who have wronged him, the people who have cheated him, the people who have lied to him or doubted his leadership. He's bringing all of these people the presence of God. Because he realizes this, that when we intercede, we don't just intercede for those that we care for. God, our prayers require more than just our friends and family. It requires mankind, our neighbor. And so when we do that, Moses prayed for the whole nation. And church, going to God means thinking of other people's spiritual health. In your prayer life, as you seek the presence of God, intercede for those who have wronged you. Intercede for those who have lied and cheated you. Intercede for others, because in doing so, we are released from the bitterness and the anger that we hold on to when they do these things against us. We are free from that, and we become community mindset. And our vision focuses less on just a part of the body, but the entire body of Christ. And my father returned back from his trip a few days later. Him and I had a difficult conversation. It was really tough. It took a while to restore trust with him. And yet, through that conversation, my favorite part of it wasn't anything that he said to me. It was his hug. My dad came up to me and he hugged me. I saw in his face that I had hurt him. And yet in that moment, I felt that he loved me. I felt that embrace. And so that's how our story ends. Exodus 33, 18 through 23 goes on to say this: "Then Moses said, 'Now show me your glory.' And the Lord said, 'I will cause all of my goodness to pass in front of you. And I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But,' he said, 'you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live.' And then the Lord said, 'There is a place near me where you may stand on the rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand, and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen." And so Moses restores God's presence to the people. But Moses wants more than that, and God grants it. What Moses is seeking here in his last experience is Moses wants something personal. He wants an encounter. He wants an experience, but most of all, he wants an embrace. When we have these difficult prayers with God, I think we should all seek to have that. Making things right and seeking an embrace so we can feel God's love again. So Moses ended his difficult prayer with a personal encounter and embrace with God. And our mistakes, we should strive to make our relationships with God personal. That's God's desire. May our prayers be like that of Moses, desiring the glory of God to go before us.